In 2013, I was living in my hometown of Davis, California, an idyllic university town located in California's Sacramento Valley.
Here, people want to move here because of the schools. People want to move here for the farmers market. People want to move here for all these things. When I was growing up here, it was just another Sleepy Valley town.
Violent crimes are uncommon in Davis, but when they do happen, it's often assumed they have been committed by outsiders. So in early March of 2013, when news spread of a brutal hate crime committed by a Davis teenager, the community was shocked.
Police are investigating a possible hate crime tonight that put a man in the hospital with major injuries. His family says he was nearly beaten to death for being gay.
Like the suspect, the victim was also a lifelong member of the Davis community. He was a 32-year-old gay man named Mikey.
One of the scariest things I've ever seen. It's almost like a movie, like the amount of blood and gore. I don't know.
We can't let one individual and their aberrant behavior determine who we are. We all know it takes a lot to heal from something like this. It takes a lot of people telling you that it's going to be okay, that you're not outside the norm, you're part of the family, you're part of the community.
This one's for you, Mikey. We love you.
I felt a need to do something in response to what had happened. I decided to pick up my camera and do my best to tell this story as it unfolded. What follows is the story of one small California town dealing with a horrific event in the year 2013. On the evening of March 9th, Mikey Partita's relatives threw him a party for his 32nd birthday at his cousin's house.
We were here at Melanie's house, our cousin's house, for Mikey's birthday party celebration.
19-year-old Clayton Garzon lived directly across the street. He noticed his neighbors were having a party, so he wandered over.
So yeah, the night we had the party, Clay kind of just gravitated over, and we just started talking or whatever. And then throughout the night, he was coming and going back and forth.
As the night, wound down, Mikey and I decided we were gonna walk to his house. By the time we got to about here, he was already starting to walk across the street, and he was calling my name, and he was saying, Vanessa, stop for a minute, what's the matter, come talk to me. And so Mikey and I just continued to keep walking. And so as soon as Mikey said, this is my leave my cousin alone, we're just gonna go home, he flipped out on him. And he was just like, you fucking faggot, fuck you, you fucking faggot, and then just continued it. I was just so, I had my head down, I was so focused on, let's get out of here, this guy's crazy. I just thought, we don't have to see this kid again, let's just keep going until Mikey says, oh, I forgot my keys, I have to go back. But he never made it back, unfortunately.
So I was walking home from work, down this alleyway. This is the way I usually come. As I walk down here, this is 4th Street. When I got right about up in here, I heard screaming.
I was standing back here, and then Shannon was in the kitchen, and he heard the noise, so he went.
There was a pounding at the door. I opened the door, and when I opened the door, I saw Mikey laying there, covered in blood. His head was a pool of blood.
And as soon as I got to here, I heard him. I heard Clayton say all the gay slurs and everything like that. And then I saw Shannon fly out of the door.
And Clayton was coming from that direction towards me, and he's saying that he had to beat the faggot up because he was talking shit. At that point, I kind of blacked out a little bit because it seemed so surreal to me, and I just kind of swung and tackled him at the same time. And we ended up on the ground here.
Shannon had Clay held down right here, and and Mikey was laid out flat right here. He was all bloody and everything right there.
At that point, Josh Lawson happened to be walking by at the same time, and I just had yelled to him to call 911.
And the kid Clay jumped up as soon as I was on the phone, calling 911. He jumped over this fence.
Davis, 911 emergency.
And I ran after him over here.
There was an assault. They were on the section across the street.
I was still on the phone with 911.
Who was assaulted?
And the cops told me not to pursue him, and I said, nah, that's what I'm gonna do. And we got to about up in there where the little grove of trees is. He tripped over the bender board, fell down and hit his face. He ran, I caught up with him at the stairs, right there. He had death grip on the stairs. I got him in a half Nelson and tried to pry his hand off of the stairs. He pushed his neck down like so and was screaming for his dad. He was already drunk, and I think he lost consciousness or something because he went limp a little bit. And that's when I grabbed him. He grabbed around my leg, got him off of me, and then his dad came out and said, I heard the whole thing. I think you're in a lot of trouble. So that's what happened. That's my account of the whole situation. It was strange. We sat there. His dad pulled up a piece of lawn furniture and had him sit down and told him that he had heard the whole event, heard everything that happened. He sat him down in the chair, and the kid kept telling me to get off the property, but the father didn't, and I said, I'm not leaving until the cops get here. And the father was quiet after that. I was quiet. The kid was trying to explain himself to his father, but father wasn't really buying it. He'd heard the whole thing. So it was strange. We just sat there and waited.
My two cousins came to the house and woke me up. And I think that was about 4 o'clock in the morning. And so they started calling around, the three of us started calling around trying to figure out which hospital he had been taken to. And so then it was sort of confirmed that he was in the ER at UC Davis. When I got there, he just looked really bad. I mean, he had this huge gash on his head. You could see sort of all the underneath. And his anxiety was so high, especially the first few days when he couldn't open his eyes at all. So he couldn't see, and so he was really freaked out. And even when he and I were in the room by ourselves, he would say, I know that he's not in the room, but I feel like he's in the room. And so he was just super anxious and paranoid. And so I couldn't leave him alone in the room. And so we always had to have somebody there with him.
Detectives are still looking for witnesses to this. If you know anything, of course, call Davis Police.
There is a suspect in this case. However, at this hour, we're told no arrests have been made.
Cops kept on asking me to just say, oh, was it a simple assault? Was it just a normal assault and battery? I said, I don't know. I think there might be overtones of hate here. I'm not sure, but the boyfriend who wasn't coming out, he was in the house. He was afraid of getting arrested, I think. He told me several times, about 3 or 4 times back there when he had him on the lawn, that he had mentioned several slurs during the melee and all that. So, I just said this might be a real big thing. You guys probably should take this seriously. Probably is a real thing.
Davis police are now investigating this incident as a possible hate crime.
Mikey, who is a long-distance runner, is said to have trouble walking now without a walker because his equilibrium is so disturbed.
He wasn't himself. He was super irritable. He was, just like I said, really anxious. The doctors kept saying it's the brain injury, it's the brain injury. He's not himself. My worry was that this was the person that he was going to be from now on, and that was really hard.
You think it's in your hometown, it's just Davis, and I don't think anything at your doorstep will hit you like that hard.
On March 14th, 4 days after the assault, the Davis police made an arrest.
Well, Davis police arrested the 19-year-old today, but within hours he posted the $75,000 bail.
New tonight, Nick James is live at the Yolo County Jail with the first photos of the suspect and his troubling past.
Witnesses say these are pictures of the suspect from his MySpace page. Neighbors say the 19-year-old Garzone is the son of a prominent doctor in town. Turns out Garzone already faces charges in connection with another violent crime. He was arrested after a stabbing in Solano County last September that injured 4. He posted bail that time, too.
What I could not understand was how this kid Clayton could be out on bail if he had stabbed 4 people, some of them multiple times, only 8 months prior. There was mysteriously almost no available information about this stabbing case. It had happened in Dixon, a working-class town of 18,000, 10 miles away from Davis. I was eventually able to track down the victims in this case, and the most surprising thing was that 2 of them had been good friends with Clayton prior to the stabbing.
I didn't think that Clay would try to hurt me, I mean, and Clay were really good friends before this.
He cared about you, and he was interested in you, and he had a good heart and a good head on his shoulders. A little crazy at times, but I mean, I think we're all a little crazy at times. We all kind of lose ourselves. But he just lost himself, and it was really sad.
Shannon, as for the suspect, he'll be due in court here in the next few days. Again, he is out on bail tonight.
On March 27th, 2.5 weeks after the hate crime assault, Clayton had to appear before a judge to be arraigned on his charges. The judge raised his bail from $75,000 to $520,000. He was taken away in handcuffs and lodged here at the Yolo County Jail.
And Shannon, as Mikey Partita prepares to spend one of the first nights at home since being released from the hospital, Clayton Garzone is here at the Yolo County Jail, preparing to spend the night here. He's bailed out in the past, but not tonight.
He was released on $500,000 on bail. Like anybody who saw it online, it's a lot of money, and it's just they could just bail him out like that. And like my mom was saying earlier, not learning his severity of the crime. I mean, you have to learn sooner or later. And it just seems like all this stuff they're doing for him, it's not going to help him learn anything. And I'm afraid for the next victim because it'll be worse. It's just an awkward situation to be in, to have that big old powerful house up against my cousin's and her boyfriend's house. And she can't sleep, and she's seen it all happen too. She was there.
There's the stain right here.
So she says he peeks out the window and looks at the house when she's out there doing anything, she had to clean the blood off a fence post, he was watching.
Yeah, I'm doing a film about the situation going on in Davis right now, so.
I'm trying to protect my privacy, so what you're doing actually is a violation of privacy. So who are you working for?
I'm not working for anybody, I'm working for myself.
Yeah, but you're gonna mention people's names, you're gonna talk about something, an event going on. I mean, you have to be very careful. And if you look at this story, everything that's been published is really one-sided so far. How would you want this presented if this happened to your brother?
What Clayton's dad did not know was that something like this had almost happened to my brother when we first moved to this town in the early 90s. And it was this memory that was motivating me to tell his son's story. After threatening my brother for the first few months we were in town, one of our classmates and 2 of his companions murdered a 14-year-old boy out by the train tracks on a Friday night. Just like with the beating of Mikey Partita, there were clear warning signs that this tragedy was coming, and I couldn't understand why nothing was done to prevent it.
I just took my anxiety pill so I would be not so nervous when I get there. And here is my room. I have my Star Trek stuff here, and I like zombies over here. I have some zombie figurines, like they're coming out of the alleys, or like, oh. Things like that. Hold on, my mom's calling right now. That's a sci-fi ringtone. But I'm going to support my family because they supported me throughout this whole thing. And so it's now their turn to go up and give a really embarrassing statement about a drinking night. So it's just like, I feel really bad for them now. I love all of them, my cousins and my cousin's boyfriends and Josh, who was there, the bouncer. Without them, we wouldn't have caught him. So we wouldn't have ever known who did it because I was already incoherent and passed out.
I was sober, I saw what I saw, I did what I did, and I stand by what I did.
When the police initially interviewed Josh Lawson at the scene of the crime, he did not mention that while he had held Clayton, he intentionally restricted an artery in Clayton's neck. This chokehold move caused Clay to lose consciousness twice.
The DA was very worried about putting me up there in some ways.
Well, we're always worried, so I talk to him, and I try to make him feel comfortable, and my feeling is, you know, whatever the evidence is out there, you know, you roll with it.
He didn't want me to essentially blow the case, which is understandable.
Davis, 911 emergency.
There was an assault or homosexual across the street at 331.
The reason why I knocked him out is because I didn't want him to leave the scene. I mean, if a suspect even leaves the site, the scene of the crime at all, and goes into a house, it affects the case negatively.
I'm with the suspect right now, actually.
Does he know you're calling us?
Yes, he's right here. Yes, he does. Stop. Relax. Okay, the adults are talking.
I never hit the kid. Cops took looks at my knuckles. There's nothing on him. I didn't hit him, he fell, hurt himself. Of course it's personal. Of course it's gonna be personal. It's just how it is.
To commit a hate crime, you don't have to have some tattoo, pure hate, KKK, Nazi swastikas, literature. You don't have to have all those different things, wear a KKK hood. You could look just like a normal businessman. And oftentimes what you're doing is you're trying to get into the head of that person committing the crime to see why he or she committed the crime.
I remember he just always wanted me to like look at him for some reason because it was just us two on the front lawn. And then he like grabbed my shirt and he just like pulled me up, and I think I remember him shaking me because he wanted me to still see him and still wake up and still remember what it was like.
As I said, you know, a lot of my feelings during this whole experience have been, like my mind has been with his parents and thinking about what they must be going through. I can think back to when my kids were teenagers, and I can think back to all the times that I worried about the people that they were going to turn out to be. And I know that sometimes things are completely out of your control. I mean, they're not carbon copies of you. As much as you try to give them your values, they sometimes don't pick up your values.
His dad was really busy. He does something in the health field, I believe.
Dr. Hernando Garzon, an emergency physician with Kaiser Permanente, his latest trip took him to Africa, where drought and famine have gripped the eastern parts of the continent.
Nothing can prepare you for how devastating the situation is.
Dr. Garzon at the Haiti disaster. He's worked at tsunamis, earthquakes, and in war zones.
Dr. Garzon, we wish you the best, and we admire you for taking these risks and doing good for the world. Thank you.
He had a lot of parties at his house. Parties all the time, you know.
We had keggers over there, and Lots of beer, lots of liquor, lots of weed. Like, I was always stoked to go to Clay's. Like, we're just kids, you know, having a good time.
I mean, they'd have right there where the garage is, they'd have the garage up, and there'd, you know, be a group of people standing there. They had beer pong tables, that kind of thing going on.
Clay's dad was never around, ever. And we threw some raging parties. It was like he never got in trouble for it. We used to enjoy it when the cops would come, because we would just turn off all the lights and we watched from different windows, and I mean, it was just always a good time. Always a good time, never a dull moment with Clay.
It was fun at the time because I was doing it with him. I didn't think he'd ever get violent or want to stab anybody.
And the mentality, the attitude, the house.
Yeah, he never thought anything could go wrong. Never learned how to lose.
I was pretty jealous of Clay at one point. It's like, damn, must be nice to live a life like that, you know? Of course, I don't feel the same way anymore.
We felt that the hate crime, in terms of the elements and proving it, would be challenging. Now you can take the surrounding evidence and look at that to prove the crime, such as words that are used.
He was just like, you fucking faggot, fuck you fucking faggot, and then just continued it.
And he's saying that he had to beat the faggot up because he was talking shit.
They're just saying the F word, like the gay word, but you know. F.
We had no other information, we had no literature, nothing telling us that he had a bias. This was going to make the case very challenging.
And so it was sort of interesting today when Jonathan, the district attorney, said that if we wanted the hate crime enhancement, we would have to go to trial, that Mike said that he still wanted the hate crime enhancement. So it's something that's very important to him. It's the only real power that he has to do any sort of combat against what has been done to him.
The defendant hired one of the more prominent defense attorneys here in the region, the greater Sacramento region. Her name is Linda Parisi.
As you know, plea bargaining is a dynamic situation, and so we're talking about a lot of different things.
She doesn't win all her cases, but she handles a lot of challenging cases where the evidence is pretty strong against the defendant.
And I know that Mike is pretty terrified about going on the stand. The defense attorney had kept the last victim on the stand for 4 days. And he will have to testify if we go to trial.
And I think because of the court date coming up, and when I think a lot about it, it just, he like comes out more in like real life. My counselor calls it my irrational part, taking over my rational part of the mind. If we go places where I think he would have liked to go, like pizza places or somewhere near Taco Bell, because I've heard people say that's places where he eats. So if I see like a bro around that location, I immediately think of him. So then I freak out. But then I have to tell myself that it's not, most likely not him. I love this town, and my mom does too, and so I don't want to leave it or be afraid of it because of one person. Because I kept visioning him in like the kitchen and my living room, and then just like around the corner in my bathroom. And it's weird because my mind's never done that to me. But I really do see him vividly sometimes when I'm going throughout my day.
part of the reason that they didn't want to go to trial is because it was such a brutal beating, and the evidence for that is pretty overwhelming. I think that it's really difficult to look at, you know, like the piece of wood that they pulled out of his eye and not have some reaction to that.
My belief was that had Mikey not been gay, either A, this attack wouldn't have occurred, or the attack wouldn't have been as brutal as it was. When you're convicted of a hate crime, that's something that's going to be, in a sense, a scarlet letter with you, potentially for the rest of your life.
They didn't want to take the hate crime enhancement, and we weren't willing to let go of the hate crime enhancement.
When you talk about the term hate crime, it can evoke a lot of emotion in people. Issues with anti-Semitism and slavery, and more recently, I think you could talk about 9/11 and hate crimes committed against people who are viewed as possibly Muslims and terrorists just because of the color of their skin and they look like they're Arab.
At this point, it had almost been forgotten that Clayton still had stabbing charges pending in Solano County. During the plea negotiations, the idea was introduced that maybe Solano County would be willing to drop his stabbing charges if Clayton agreed to plead to the hate crime enhancement in the Davis case.
So one of the things that came up was that, you know, well, maybe Solano would be willing to dismiss their case.
At this point, I was still having a difficult time finding out any information about the stabbing case. No news outlets were covering the story, so I called Solano County District Attorney's office to see if I could get any information from them.
Our office, the Solano County District Attorney's office, will not be making a statement for the documentary. Be aware, please do not contact our office anymore with regards to this.
When I finally did track down the victims, I found out that they were also having a really hard time finding out any information about their case.
At first, they just kind of said they didn't have anything and I had to wait, you know, till they called me.
We were the ones who were calling, you know, what's going on?
I went in there one day. They said they couldn't give me anything because they didn't have me as a victim in the case. They had never heard of me.
And it got to a point where we were like, dude, do you guys even give a shit about us?
On September 12, 2012, Clayton and a 16-year-old friend of his stabbed Sam, Andy, and 2 others, a total of 7 times.
It started getting hard to breathe because of, you know, my lung collapsed.
4 inches deep into my back and 2 inches wide. Fucking screaming, fuck you, dude, it fucking hurts!
You know, all his poop and pee was leaking into him. You know, all his nasty crap was leaking into his body.
I can't remember what day it was. The district attorney called us and said that Solano had agreed to dismiss the stabbing case.
2 people tried to take 4 people's lives, like, and they got away with it.
It was a very, very challenging case. In some ways, I'd analogize that to our hate crime. Even though there was a belief it was committed and there was a crime, it was a very challenging case to prove. And this was because a group of young men from Davis were in a fight, basically, with another group of young men from Dixon.
And I invited him to the party, and he was actually going to spend the night that night. I told him he could spend the night. That's the only reason he came down.
I mean, we were just trying to go party, just, you know, forget about work and, you know, all the things we got going on in life. You know, parties go, man.
Yeah, small party, not very big at all. We're all having a good time. We started early barbecuing, and everyone was playing beer pong.
it just went from 0 to fucked up in like just a flash of an eye. And it changed my entire outlook on life.
It takes somebody else getting hurt and beat up for them to actually put some action.
No one really even, I feel like the Dixon Police Department didn't even really care for helping us out, really.
You know, not that they're lazy, they just didn't care, I don't think. You know, they had other stuff going on and kind of just got in the pile, and
I know that the prosecution in Solano knew it was a very challenging case, and they knew their chance of a conviction wasn't that great, even though they felt strongly a crime was committed. And in light of that, that's why we were able to work with the prosecutors in Solano County to kind of do this global settlement. And they dismissed the stabbing part of the crime because that assisted us in getting the plea in Yolo County, and because they thought it was going to be very tough for them to get a conviction on that charge anyway.
On September 17th, Clayton's plea deal was officially announced.
The man accused of beating a gay man in a hate crime pleaded no contest to felony battery today.
A hate crime, I should say, because he beat a young man because that young man's gay. New at 5. Ron
Part of the
Jones.
plea deal, Clayton Garzon is expected to spend 5 years in prison.
Clayton pleaded no contest to a felony count of battery causing serious bodily injury, as well as an enhancement, designating the attack a hate crime. As expected, his stabbing charges were dropped.
The victim of the crime says the justice system worked.
Now Partita will begin writing a statement that he'll read aloud when Garzon is formally sentenced.
Garzon will remain out on bail until a sentencing hearing October 30th. At that time, he'll be taken into custody.
You know, everybody had it all messed up. Like, they didn't listen to anything we said.
I mean, yeah, it's nice to see him getting in trouble and all, and he's got a huge bail or whatever that his daddy paid, but it hurts that they didn't really care for us, you know?
We got no help. We had no help. We fought for ourselves, you know, I'm talking in the justice-wise. It's like we were forgotten.
And I think it just highlights that justice is not the same for everyone. And I think that's really too bad.
I would probably hug him, and I'd probably like cry. And I'd probably want to know what the fuck is going through his head. And I would want to help him, because as terrible as his actions were, I know him, and I know that he can be a good person. And I know that, you know, he's a troubled kid. You know, he's going through whatever time. You know, you don't know what's going on behind closed doors with some people. It doesn't excuse what he's done, but, you know, I would just want to help him.
I always think what it's going to be like when he kind of finally comes to the bar with his ID, probably his prison ID or whatever, tries to show it to me and gets in if I'm still working there. I think I'd just look at it, read the name, and throw it out in the parking lot and be like, don't ever come back. That's probably what I'd do. I thought about it a bunch of times. I mean, I'm never going to be okay with that dude, no matter what.
was one of the things I had said to the district attorney when we first met, was he said, well, he'll probably get less time because he's from a good family. And I said, you mean if he was like a poor black boy from, you know, and he actually said, you know, if his parents were never around and, you know, all of these things, that he would probably get more time. And I said, that seems so socially unjust.
And then having a family that was supportive of him, and they are. They were with him every step of the way in this case. And also with some financial means. And your chances of success, for better or for worse, are more likely with those financial means.
The kid's like more better off than a lot of people that I know. Still, even though he's stabbed people, he's probably going to make it further in life than I will.
My mom was there for the most part of it, sleeping on a two-seater in the hospital while you got to roam the streets free after all of this. With the help of my family, counselor, and the community, I am working past my PTSD, and I will go on and in time be able to be comfortable in my own skin and mind. I hope for you, Clayton Garzon, that you think twice before putting your hands on someone again. I hope that you could help in some way.
Time would be way.
I mean, it doesn't feel like it'll ever be gone. Sometimes I'll look at Mike and I can see the scar under his eye. Or when he gets a haircut, you can really see sort of where he's got the bald spot on the side of his head. And then I think about how that'll always be part of him now. Be part of his experience, his life experience, and our life experience.